Okay, here we go. Now this one, this one was a real challenge. And when I talk about, men need just once in their life, you need to see yourself through a woman's eyes. You need to see and hear yourself uh, through a woman's eyes. Preferably a woman you're trying to impress, because actually you really don't want any part of that, but you really should experience it once or twice. Well, anyway, this book is called Dethroned, and it's kind of an international uh, uh, epic. Branch Čubrilo is a wonderful writer, and Branca's new book Dethroned came out. I'm determined to read it, and this is an epic. Uh, uh, it's after World War II in Serbia, Croatia, that part of the world, and they go from one war to another, and then to a civil war, and the fascists and the communists and the capitalists are all killing each other, and they're just not stopping. And the book is about, well, it's about a lot of things, but what I was tracking through the book were these two teenage girls who graduate from high school just as another war is breaking out, and they're both lovely, smart, intelligent women. One is a poet, and one is kind of a pragmatist, and they're friends. But they realize the hard way that they just got to get out of this part of the world, and they go to London, not together. And so they set out in their own ways of solving their problems. Now, the main character here is Pia Odak, and Pia is a raven-haired, beautiful woman who is a poet, and uh, and the men are come after her with hooks and tongs all the time. When people aren't getting shot all around her, having to hide and do all this stuff, she's got to deal with every guy in the world who won't take no for a goddamn answer, and and uh, and and she's calm as a cucumber. She knows herself. She's like Louise Terry, and later like the Silver Girl. She knows herself, and so she's not threatened so much as just wildly inconvenienced by the attentions these guys give her. This is what she says when she meets a guy who likes her. Never take me seriously. I am not a woman who will stay. I never stayed, and I never will. I don't love, as I am not gifted in that field. But we can stay friends as long as we both wish to. And she has to find 1,100 ways of saying that. And here's one little episode. I think she's in a cafe with her guy she's been dating named Tim for a year. He read her poetry, her essays, and short stories. He tried to get to know her through her dark poetry, but every time he thought that he knew her at least a little bit better, a new poem would come and reveal something new, often something disturbing, dark, almost dangerous, as if there were some irreparable mistake or loss, some cry hidden on the following page that hadn't been written yet. The more he knew Pia, the more he feared that he would never really get to know her. He feared that she was just a short paragraph added to the book of his own history. It had been almost a year since he'd started dating Pia. They were sitting in a cafe. She had a lunch break. He said, I fear you, Pia. Often I fear you. Why? Sometimes you are so distant, unavailable. I am. I always am. Why so? I'm distant. I told you not to take me too seriously. I told you never to let me know that you need me or miss me. It wasn't a joke. I don't miss people. What's wrong then? Wrong? Yeah, I think something went wrong sometime in your life. Nothing went wrong. I don't need people. I am happiest when I am alone. But what am I to you, Pia? A friend? A friend? Nothing more than a friend? No. We've been together a year, and yet to you I am no more than a friend. Don't get agitated. How could I not get agitated? I love you, Pia, and you're telling me that there's nothing more between us than friendship? She was stirring the rest of her coffee with a small spoon. He stopped her hand and said, Look at me. Look into my eyes. Tell me now that there's nothing else between us but plain friendship. Don't insist. What do you mean by don't insist? You don't love me, do you?" She shook her head barely, visibly, and he felt as if a sharp knife was thrust into his heart. "Say it." She looked at the table. Her hands were resting on the table, her head rocking slowly. Her silky hair was waving as if saying a silent goodbye to the man who sat next to her, and in utter disbelief gazed at her waving hair. He put his finger under her chin and said quietly, lifting her head up, "Say it, please. Verbalize it, Pia. You know that." "What do I know? I think you have a problem. I never asked you to love me. You never asked? Do you think that love has to be asked for? Wasn't all I have done enough for you, for us? And you want to say that you have never asked for it? Is that what you're saying?" She nodded her head. "What do you want me to do? Do you want me to go away, to disappear from your life? Do you want me to stop loving you?" "I don't want anything, Tim. I never asked you to love me." "You shouldn't ask. Love happens, Pia. How did you see our relationship? What was I to you, a friend?" "I don't fall in love, as I don't need love." "You don't need love." Slightly, she lifted her left shoulder and bit her lip. "What the hell is wrong with you, Pia?" "Nothing's wrong with me. I don't need people. If you walked away now, it wouldn't be a disaster. I wouldn't be upset or unhappy. Tim, I don't get upset, please, but I simply don't have those feelings. For me. It's me, isn't it?" "No, it's me." He stood up and walked away. She sat there overwhelmed with feelings of relief. She liked him in her own way, but she couldn't share Pia. No, she couldn't share Pia with anyone. The next morning, Tim called to ask if she wanted to talk about it again. He asked if she was sure about her feelings. All she said to a rather confused man was, "I never needed a lasting friendship. Everything is so transient." It wasn't a friendship. There was more to it. It wasn't a friendship. There was more to it. "Don't get upset. You can't handle feelings." "No, it's not about that. Just I don't feel like sharing right now." "Have you ever shared anything with anyone?" "Please don't get upset. It's late and I'm cold and I'm off to bed. Good night." Well, as I said, Pia's comes from a country that was in the middle of a revolution, after a country that was in war, a country that after the revolution is then going to have a civil war. She came home from school one day and her mother was sitting on the kitchen floor with both her wrists slit. And when Pia went to help her, she said, Don't help me, just talk to me." So they talked while she died. Her grandmother, the only other woman in the world that she cared for, was shot by a sniper, just for target practice. So she's come from a pretty harsh world, and bullshit just isn't part of her vocabulary. And she is not going to romanticize the projections that are put on her. And so in this sense, her great looks are kind of a curse. And that's just a part of the rest of the stuff that goes on in here. So that's a real compelling read.